All right, so I'm here with Jared Auner, and he is with Mondo Macabro. And one of the first questions I sent you, obviously, you are not the only person behind Mondo Macabro. Do you mind sharing who all is involved in Mondo and what you do there?
Yeah, I mean, I'm just an employee with Mondo Macabro. So I've been with the company for about 7 years now. But Mondo Macabro goes back like 20 years or so at
It's
this point.
ancient. Yeah.
Yeah, it's been around. I mean, that's a long time in DVD, Blu-ray terms. It's a long time. The company was founded by Pete Toombs and Andy Stark. Pete Toombs is the author of the books Immoral Tales and Mondo Macabro. And they did the TV shows Erotica, which was based on Immoral Tales, and Mondo Macabro, which was based on Mondo Macabro, and that's how the label got started.
So nowadays, you are pretty much the outward-facing voice of a lot of Mondo Macabro, though. Is that right?
Yeah, I mean that's basically just because I run the web. I run the website, and I'm on the message forums, and I run the Facebook page, and I'm answering customers' emails and stuff like that. So I'm usually the person that someone is going to talk to. Pete is really the person that does a lot of the technical stuff, that builds a lot of the discs. I help out with some of that too, but he does more of that technical end. So he's busy doing that stuff. So the task sort of falls to me to do stuff like this, to give interviews and things like that. So sort of by default, I've become the face of the company. For good or ill, that's the way it's worked out.
Understandable. Hopefully not to get any of this on the wrong foot fairly early on, but a lot of people out there are very negative, and one of the things that is I love the immediate reaction. One of the things that stuck with me, I remember, I believe it was, gosh, it's 2022, so probably about 3 years ago now, you had posted somewhere that I think it was like due to a delay in something. It was this overtly harsh reaction from everybody to the point of even like death threat emails. Do you remember anything?
Yeah, I think that was with Blood Spattered Bride for some reason,
That
and it
sounds
wasn't
right.
even necessarily a big, huge delay or anything. I mean, delays are kind of common in this business,
Especially
anyway.
nowadays.
Yeah, especially nowadays. It's something that happens. But yeah, this was a guy in Germany who just he was, his order was in the queue to be shipped, but he was just upset that it didn't go out right away. And I just, and was just upfront and told him, I'm sorry, I'll get to it when I get to it. And that wasn't good enough. And it just very quickly escalated to him talking about how he would destroy me. He would find me and destroy me because he didn't get his copy of Blood Spattered Bride
in enough time.
He's
still going to get it. Right.
I mean, he would get it. And that's the thing, is that these things do go out. It's just people have Amazon Prime expectations from these little boutique labels. And, unlike some of the other labels, like it is literally just me doing the shipping. So it takes longer than I would like. I don't like that it sometimes takes me as long as 3 weeks or a month. The last one took me like almost 5 weeks. And that was had a little bit to do with the holidays being in there too. But, I don't like that, and I wish it did go faster. But, it takes as long as it takes. And there's, your life is not negatively affected by a movie not showing up on your doorstep, within 2 weeks of you ordering it. I mean, that's, you'll survive. I'm guessing you have plenty of other movies to watch in your life.
That was what I was about to say. Most of the people ordering these have 20 they're still sealed films sitting on the shelf. Come on.
Yeah, and I get it. I mean, I like to get stuff too. I mean, it's fun just to open the packages and look at the shiny new thing that you've got. I get that, but you just have some patience. And it's especially bad with international. I mean, a lot of international customers are great and fully aware, but not all of them. And international mail is precarious. There's many vagaries, there's many variables that can go wrong, and so it sometimes takes a lot longer for things to just arrive after I ship them out.
And it's literally worse now than I've ever seen it, I think.
It's pretty bad. It comes and goes, and sometimes it'll be like, I'll ship something out and it'll arrive in the UK in like less than 2 weeks.
Right.
And then sometimes I get, emails, and I get emails almost daily from someone saying, it's been more than a month. Should I be worried? And I have to tell them, this isn't great, but no, you don't necessarily have a reason to be worried just yet. And, 9.9 times out of 10, it shows up at their doorstep, with no problem. It's just, and again, I get it. I've had the same feeling when I've ordered stuff from overseas and it takes like 2 months to get there. You start to worry. But, just in my experience, lost packages are extremely rare. So it's, no one has any real reason to worry unless it's been like 3 months or something.
Right.
Beyond that, it starts to, it's more of a chance that your package is lost.
I was a psych major in college, and a part of that has led to me, doing this. I've tried to use some of that to quell the expectations of a lot of these people, to understand these are people. And one of the things that I've noticed doing even my day-to-day actual job is that if you bring the humanity to things, people are suddenly a lot more understanding, because they're not just thinking Mondo Macabro is an entity. It's Jared right now that you're actually thinking on and focusing on, and they're doing it for you. So to bring some of that humanity, can you share about Jared, who you are, where you've come from, how you got to where you are?
Well, I'm just a fan, like anybody. I'm literally just like anybody who might be watching this video. I like movies a lot. I like weird horror movies and genre movies, crime movies, sex movies. I like that stuff a lot. And I'm a physical media collector, as you can see. We both sort of have similar backgrounds right now. I collect this stuff. I'm not just the president. I'm also a member.
Right.
I legitimately enjoy these things, and that's what got me interested in working with Pete in Mondo Macabro. I was just a huge fan of what they did. They were my favorite boutique label, and still are. And so I was just a fan who started talking to him, and it just gradually sort of snowballed to the point where I was working monetarily for them.
Right.
It took a few years, and now we're to the point where it's a bigger operation every year. So.
And I've been stoked to see that growth. I sincerely hope that continues. It has been not always super optimistic about the future, so I hope at the moment that feels a lot better for you guys.
Well, I know it's a weird thing, because certainly I don't know what your experience is like as just someone who collects, but like if you talk to people like who are not collectors or run into anyone, it's like they're like, people still buy movies,
right?
And when I tell people this is what I do for a living, they get especially confused and really just don't get it, and are like,
right.
So I get this question a lot. You make money doing this? And I swear I do, and even at the sort of small level that we do it, some of the bigger guys are making quite a bit of money.
Oh yeah.
Nobody's getting rich doing this, but there's good money out there for this, and I'm able to make a healthy living. So it is a weird thing, and it makes you wonder, because the death knell of physical media has been rung several times.
Oh yeah.
Just in the mass media. Just people just assume that it's over. So it even I still have doubts every once in a while, like, ooh, how long is this going to last?
Exactly.
But it's the intense collector niche market is really healthy. At least right now. Who knows what? There could be another huge fallout, in the economy, and people,
of course,
you never know what's going to happen. But it's interesting that during the COVID crisis, things have only gotten better. Even early on, when suddenly people were, either being furloughed or laid off or just straight up out of work. Unemployment numbers were really bad for a little while, but our numbers soared.
Right.
and I know that's the case for all of the labels out there. Like all of us did better than the year before. Um, so there's just something about that intensity that is in. I mean, and sometimes it has a negative effect when people get really, impatient about
Right.
things. But it's because people are passionate about it, and that passion keeps us in business, and it's really exciting. And I'm really excited to see it, and I'm glad it's happening because again, I'm a fan and I like to see all the stuff that comes out too, so it's really exciting, and I am optimistic that it will stick around. I don't know how long. I really
It's a
don't.
great question.
It's impossible. It's impossible to say. But I mean, I mean, there were even like 5 years ago, who even would have known that it's
Right.
as big as it is now. So we really just don't know. I think it's healthy, and I think it'll be healthy for a while yet.
Well, and you brought up COVID. A big part of the kind of newfound intensity could be because a lot of these people are newer and maybe they
Yeah.
had been streaming and now that they're stuck at home and they're actually getting that tangible aspect, they're more fervent about it and they're just not used to that. They're used to if I email Netflix and complain enough, they'll do something. So,
Right. And I think that's it. There's a lot of people who have come to it just realizing, spending more time at home, maybe realizing their streaming options aren't answering their needs as much as
right.
they would like, and sort of seeking out things. And they might, find Arrow or Vinegar Syndrome first, and then they sort of branch out and start finding all the weird stuff. I mean, we're a little bit, deeper down in the mines than some of those other labels, but I think once you start digging, you'll find. I mean, if you get into like the Italian or the Spanish, the
Of
Euro
course.
horror stuff, hopefully, eventually, you'll find some of the stuff that we've put out, and that will, and then you'll find, like that we've done a Latvian movie or South Korean movies. You'll gradually expand your horizons. So, I mean, I think there's a lot of that going on right now.
Yeah. One of the things that has always impressed me the most about Mondo is that literally you're probably one of the most like tenured labels out there right now. That is more of a niche. Obviously, somebody like Kino has been around for decades and
Sure.
Criterion, but
Yeah.
hard to compare to those, obviously. But for somebody that's been around that is on the smaller side and more niche and boutique focused, that multiple decades under your belt, and after the first couple of years, through that entire time, you've been hearing physical media is dying every other day. I mean,
Yeah.
it's impressive to carry that legacy on.
Yeah. Mondo Macabro really survived. Like they survived through the tumultuous DVD days.
Yeah.
I mean, things were really healthy through about 2008, and then the economy crashed.
Yep.
And Blu-ray had just come in, but it wasn't a widespread thing yet. And we survived. We survived that sort of interim period between 2009 and 2013 or so, I think, which was around the time we put out our first Blu-ray.
Right.
That was a precarious time for sure, because I think Pete was only putting out like one DVD a year or so. Mondo Macabro, people may not know this, Mondo Macabro is under the same umbrella as Rook Films,
Right.
which is the production company that does like the Ben Wheatley movies and the Peter Strickland movies and stuff like that. And so that had sort of was the more that had got started around that time, the early 20 teens. So that was more the focus, and and it was just like Pete just likes doing this, is also a physical media guy, and had these connections, and so just kept putting out one or two things. And that's actually how I got involved. Was I saw that he was putting these things out, and not as many people were noticing them.
Right.
That's how I got involved. I started running their blog, and set up a Facebook page for them and stuff like that. I mean, that was that, and it's down to Pete's vision and Pete's persistence, his stubbornness, and just his sort of common sense about how to run these things. He sort of stuck to just, okay, things are sort of dead right now. I'm not going to flood the market with things.
Right.
But around the time I came on board, I could see that things were getting more robust. That Blu-ray was really coming in, and there was this fervent interest in movies being released in that format.
Right.
So that's, and with me helping to open the store and everything, and that selling direct, and so that's what sort of kick-started everything to where we are now a little bit.
Perfect. Pete's vision is a really great segue into one of the questions I sent you, which is I've been sharing about Mondo for literally years at this point, and how much I enjoy everything about it. And one of the things that I am constantly saying about Mondo Macabro, kind of more than any other label out there, is that there's something about the titles that you can just tell this was made to be released by Mondo Macabro. Can you try to explain that aspect? And first of all, do you agree with that?
I mean, I think so, and it's something that we think about and actively talk about. Like, sometimes, is this a movie is this a Mondo Macabro movie?
Does it fit?
Is this something that fits our brand? Yeah. And sometimes there are things that we sort of decide don't. Movies that we genuinely love, but for whatever reason, that may be one of the deciding factors against us doing it, is it just doesn't really fit our brand. So yeah, and it really is more of, it is very much a, we know it when we see it sort of
exactly.
It's there's not a calculation to it. There's not like, check this, check that, it meets all these criteria. It doesn't really work like that. But it's like the byline of our brand is the wild side of world cinema.
Right.
And so that's what we're really going for. We're definitely seeking things out beyond the UK, where the company was started, and the US, which is where we release stuff, and of course where I am based. So we're seeking out movies from Europe and from Asia and from Latin America. And so that's a good place to start, is that it's going to be more, not that we would have anything against. In fact, we're releasing Dr. Caligari, the 1989 Dr. Caligari, later this year, and that's an American movie. So I mean, but it still fits the brand. It's still a weird, unusual movie. There's weird sex excuse me, that's a hard thing to say. Sex
aspects
to it, and horror aspects. So I mean, it works. It fits into the brand very much. But for the most part, we're looking for movies that come from countries that are outside of the usual English speaking world. So Asia is something that really interests me, and that's when I try and look for movies and sign movies, that's where I'm going. Pete has many contacts in Asia as well, but many contacts in Europe. So those are the areas that we tend to work in the most.
And Asian cinema seems to be huge right now. A lot of people finally getting real interest in a lot of the underseen and really underappreciated Asian cinema. So
yeah, it's having a moment right now, isn't it? Yeah, it's kind of interesting. Just as a fan, like, I really love what like Eureka is doing with their Hong Kong releases, and 88 Films, like Third Window in the UK with their Japanese stuff. I love it. It's really exciting to see Arrow with their Japanese stuff. And we're trying to do more. We've released some Japanese movies, and we released some Korean movies. We've got a couple of Japanese things coming up later this year, and some Indian stuff again. So
nice. That's been a while.
Yeah, it has been a while. So we're revisiting those Bollywood horror movies. So expect some of those later this year. But
cool. Yeah. One of the things you're talking about, that feeling of Mondo Macabro. Do you think, for anybody brand new to the label, maybe some DVD titles and some of the Blu-ray titles, just maybe 2 or 3 of each, that you would say these these are what our company is in an essence? If you look at these titles first, you'll really get it.
Sure. Yeah. I mean, I think the best place to start is going to be Alucarda, the Mexican film. Yeah, exactly. Yeah, right. I mean, it essentially is our flagship title. That was the first title, I think the first title released in the UK in probably like 2000 or 2001.
Yep.
And then it was also then the first title released in the US a couple of years later. And it's still our one of our best. I mean, I sell tons of copies of it just through the website. it's a perennial bestseller, and is a fantastic movie. Just a very unusual, weird gothic psychedelic horror movie.
Right.
So I mean that's always going to be like the first stop, I think.
I agree.
As far as DVDs as well, and again, if let me put this out there about Alucarda, just for your viewers in case, because it seems like we continuously need to talk about this, but we can't do it on Blu-ray,
right.
Because the negative was lost. We sent it back to the lab in Mexico years ago, and they lost it,
which is unfortunate.
It's hugely unfortunate. I mean, we basically cried. we had both Pete and I had a couple of sleepless nights when we found that out. When we first decided, okay, let's go full board to Blu-ray. That was one of the first things I was like, well, we have to do Alucarda again. I mean, we just have to. I mean, right. People would go nuts, and we can't. And he found out, and we just. Yeah, I mean, and it still upsets me, and still upsets Pete too.
I'm glad we got it in the format we did, but
yeah, I mean, at least it'll be, and it's not going anywhere. I mean, we pretty much have full worldwide rights in perpetuity to it, which makes it extra sad that we can't. And we hold out hope that we might be able to find a usable film element at some point. We haven't yet, though, and we've gotten help from other people, including Joe at Vinegar Syndrome has looked for it, and he's a genius at finding these kinds of things, and has not been able to dig it.
And it's not uncommon that we hear some random ass story about we just found this in the back of the storeroom.
I know, yeah,
this warehouse,
exactly.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so, I mean, that's stuff like that does happen and may happen in the future.
Yeah, look, but, I mean, the Hitcher. They just found the Hitcher after decades.
I know. Literally. Yeah, that was. Yeah, I know. Really. Yeah, just somebody. That just took somebody going and looking.
Right.
I think instead of just the studio. And that's something that's in the back of our minds too, is like, does one of us need to actually go to Mexico to the studio and actually go and look? Because you never just know if they just say they took one cursory glance and we're like, no, it's not here.
Or the box was mislabeled or something.
Exactly. You never know. So, but for the time being, just for anyone, because we still get questions, and we've talked about it a lot, but we still get questions all the time. It's just not going to happen. But that was a long tangent. I'm sorry, but
I love tangents.
Yeah.
Believe me.
But another, if it's just talking about ones we've done on DVD that are still on DVD, and we're probably not going to do on Blu-ray anytime soon. Lady Terminator is the other movie. Yeah, exactly. That is a movie that it's like a comfort movie for me almost at this point. And I think a lot of people. I mean, it's just the most fun trash movie. I mean, I really think it's like 5-star trash film. I mean, it really is just amazing. So those are good places to start with DVD. With Blu-ray, it's a little trickier just because in the Blu-ray era, we've sort of embraced doing even some more sort of well-known movies than when we did. But as far as things that speak to me, I think The Fan is right. Thank you. Yeah, you're
just for a visual for everybody. Yeah, I kind of had a feeling what a lot of the titles would be.
Sure. Yeah, and The Fan is a great place to start, and is a really interesting, dark movie that I know very few people who have seen it and not been affected by it.
Right.
Very interesting teenage angst thriller that goes in very uncomfortable and dark directions by the end.
For me, that one is one of those movies that works really well on a rewatch, which for a movie like that doesn't always happen.
Sure.
I love The Fan.
Yeah, it's a really classic movie. And I would hope that we could even someday keep it in our catalog, for one thing, because rights do expire.
Of course.
But it's something I definitely want to keep, and hopefully we'll get the chance to maybe even upgrade it at some point. So, because the HD transfer on that one was sort of old even when we got it. So it still looks great, but it's something that I would love to be able to continuously upgrade. And again, now, like Alucarda, it's sort of become a flagship title for us, a very steady seller, and something that gets everyone. People will put articles on the net about it, and then that will, someone will write an article and then we'll sell, 50 more copies.
Somebody randomly discovers it and lights the
right, and and it just becomes this sort of thing. So so that's a really good place to start. I would pick a couple of personal favorites beyond then to recommend that are very weird, but then very weird is sort of our remit, right?
Exactly.
That's part of our brand. I think the South Korean movie Woman Chasing the Butterfly of Death.
That's one I don't have next to me.
No, you've let me down, Ryan. No, that's okay. That was a dream project of mine. When I first started working for Mondo Macabro, that's one of the things that I wanted to bring out. I love the director Kim Ki-young. He did the movie The Housemaid in 1960. That's probably the most famous movie he's done. It's like part of the Criterion Collection now, even. So, but that is just probably the weirdest movie we've ever done, to be quite honest. I can't even describe it. It's sort of a horror movie, but it's not really a horror movie. It's sort of a melodrama, but it's not a melodrama. It's uncategorizable and very weird. Late 70s, talking skeletons, mummy women who come back and beautiful mummy women who come back and want to eat your liver to survive. Just things like that. It's just unbelievable movie. And if I had to pick, I'm sorry, go ahead.
All I was going to say is the art that you guys commissioned for that, freaking amazing, and it works so well with the title. That is one of my favorite covers in the entire catalog, by the way.
Oh, cool! Thanks. That's Naomi Butterfield is the artist who did that.
Nice.
She's done a few things for us, and I think that is her best work. It is a really stunning title or cover. And just one more. I'll put one more out there. Silip, Daughters of Eve. Yeah. It's an incredible movie. It was my favorite movie of the DVD era, even more so than like Alucarda, I think.
Right.
It is just, it's not for everyone. There is a really horrendous animal death. I'll just be upfront with that right at the beginning of the movie, because that is something you'll get people going crazy in Facebook groups about these days. So I'll just put it out there that it is, and there's lots of uncomfortable sexual situations to be too that might make people, that might disturb some people, but I think it is a transgressive masterpiece. Again, like Butterfly or like Alucarda, nothing like it. There's nothing like it that you'll ever see. So so those are sort of my starter pack.
I think those are obviously I would agree with most of those because I had them ready to go. One of the ones that surprised me most over the last, I might even be a little longer than a year. COVID time obviously has blended everything.
I know.
Before I show that title, one of the things that I've always described to Mondo is kind of a what the fuck type of movie label, but in an intriguing way, not like in a gross way, but like, this is weird, and I want to keep watching because it's weird.
Right.
And one of the ones that got me with that is Hunting Ground. I adore this movie.
Yeah.
Any personal thoughts on that one that you'd like to share?
Well, that was something that I had never seen it. It was new to me when Pete signed it. So it was as much a discovery for me as it was for you or pretty much anyone else watching it. But it is a powerful movie. And honestly, I was surprised. I'm not sure how you felt, but I was surprised when I watched it how sort of sober and serious it is throughout much of it, and I think that's down to Jorge Grau, the director, who also did Blood Ceremony, the Countess Bathory movie, and of course, most famously, Living Dead at Manchester Morgue, one of the truly great European zombie movies. And both of those movies too have they're not quite as sober, but they have a seriousness of intent, you can tell.
Agreed.
By the director. He's not just slapping it out Bruno Mattei style, which is great. Don't get me wrong. I love Bruno Mattei. But there's a real intelligence lurking in his work that you can tell that is right up there on screen.
And he has a voice for sure.
Definitely in a very authorial voice. And Hunting Ground is definitely one of those. And it surprised me just how, like I said, sober the film is. It's like a very serious drama. In fact, I was sort of worried when I first saw it that some people might, think it was boring or something even, just how people, have certain expectations of European horror, especially, they want it to be really outrageous. But then you get to the end, and I'm not going to spoil it, but it's really outrageous. Yeah. It's really shocking. It really is. I had some clue because I had talked about the movie with Pete, but when even having sort of knowing what was going to happen, I was still sort of taken aback. Whoa, they really went there with it.
It makes the entire thing feel so much more unsettling by the end.
It really does. It really does. And it's a great build up and a great sort of, the way it approaches that moment. It's a great payoff to everything that's set up in the movie. Yeah, it's a fantastic film. And I've been happy to report that's been a pretty good seller for us. So obviously people are cluing into it and enjoying it. I've heard mostly positive things, which is
awesome.
Great. Yeah.
You mentioned upgrading the fan, and obviously there was a mention of Caligari, Caligari. That is coming in 4K this year, correct?
Yes, that will be our first UHD release.
Now, are you treating that in your mind as a test, or are you planning on continuing 4K potentially?
I mean, it's the way of the market. There are expectations there that you have to do some movies on UHD, although people need to temper those expectations because not everything can come out on UHD. It's not economically feasible to do it. It's also not, the materials aren't always there. Exactly. I mean, I do think some movies have been released on UHD that have no business being on UHD. It's just it's not necessarily to do with the quality of the 4K or 4K scan or restoration. It's just the materials themselves
right.
It's just it just doesn't make as much sense. But with Caligari, we just had we got access to the to pristine negatives and an offer from a very prestigious kind of up and coming restoration house to do it. Did they do it for free, or they did it for free or for very cheap? Wow. Just because they wanted to do it and they wanted to help us out with this. And so it's the same restoration company that did Suspiria for Cinemas. Yeah. So if you've seen that restoration, it's
amazing. Yeah.
That's one of the best restorations of a certainly of a horror movie you'll ever see.
Agreed. Yeah.
So it's done by those same people in Poland, of all places, Poland. So it's so we have this beautiful restoration of it. Pete got the worldwide perpetual rights to it. We own the movie now.
Forever.
So we own, we can do theatrical, we can do streaming, we own all those rights. So with just that in mind, since the clock wasn't ticking, so when we license a movie, it's usually we're only licensing it for 5 to 7 years, and then we have to renew. But this, we've just bought it in perpetuity. So in cases where the clock is ticking on a 7-year license, we have to sort of do what we can to, get it
of course
up to snuff, but get it out as quickly as possible. But since the clock isn't ticking, we've had some more time to work on this, and we've been working on it for about 3 years now. A lot of work has gone into it. So, wow. So that's kind of what. So we have all these options for it. We had the time to work on it. We have the materials. We have, everything is in place. We're working with Siadian, the director. I may have mispronounced his name. I'm not sure. But we're working with the director. He's fully on board.
Nice.
So all these things, and it just was the perfect storm of situations that led to us saying, yeah, let's try it out. Let's give this a shot, and we'll see how it goes. If it does really well, I think it is going to do really well because people are asking about it all the time. Then we probably will do more UHDs. But again, it'll just depend on the title, the materials, how much time we think we can put into working on it and making sure it's worthy of putting out in 4K. So that's a very long-winded answer to your question, but
it's appreciated.
Yeah, but I mean that is sort of a glimpse into the outlook of how we decided on it and how we'll decide on it in the future.
And just like the titles that come out through Mondo, you can tell just through speaking on this that it is actual curation and passion that comes through the label, and not just, hey, this will sell 5,000 copies, let's put it on 4K just to entice people to buy it.
Right. Yeah, I mean that is definitely it. We don't put out movies we don't love.
Right.
We, even if there are sometimes movies that there will be a calculation as to, well, this is available and this will sell well. I mean, we have made those decisions, but there's still movies we love.
Of course.
A good example would be the 2 Fulci movies we've done, Lizard and a Woman's Skin and Perversion Story. Those were available. We could get access to the negatives in Europe, or at least access to really nice HD transfers that had already been done in Europe.
Right.
And so it's a no-brainer, we know you put Fulci's name on something and it's probably going to sell.
Yep.
But at the same time, we love those movies. I really love Lizard and a Woman's Skin. I mean, that's top 10 Giallo for me, at least, if not even top 5. So we're never going to do something just purely.
By the way, that was waiting in the wings.
There you go. So you've been buying this stuff all along, haven't you?
Oh,
yeah. I thought your name looked familiar, honestly, when we were setting this up. So we're never going to do something that's just for purely mercenary reasons.
Right.
It's always going to be out of love, but there are some movies that we love that we know, oh, that's going to sell, so let's jump on that. And there's some movies that we love that we think this may not sell well, but we think this is really interesting, and maybe we can build up the interest in this movie, or build up awareness of this movie through us putting it out. And that's part of our brand too, I think, is just that we're a label that introduces movies to people. We're not just putting out movies that people have already bought 2 or 3 times already. We're hopefully putting out at least 4 or 5 things a year that no one's ever bought,
and many times even heard of.
Exactly. Yeah. And that goes for me too. Pete has been doing this stuff for, probably longer than he wants me to say on the air. He's been, just watching these movies and being really into them and talking about them and writing about them and releasing them. And so he has this wealth of knowledge that far eclipses my own. And so he's bringing things to the table that I had never, like I mentioned, Hunting Ground earlier was one. I think, I'd vaguely heard the title maybe, but had never seen it. And there are other things. One that really is great that he brought to the table is Spider, the Latvian movie. Very, never been a big seller, but that is very key Mondo Macabro stuff. That's, a Latvian psychedelic sex horror movie where a woman has sex with a giant spider. Right? So I mean,
got to sell the story somehow.
I know, right? And that's about as Mondo Macabro as you can get.
Yep.
Foreign country that nobody has seen a movie from. Beautiful girl has sex with a spider. Money in the bank.
Immediately.
Maybe not Money in the Bank, but we enjoyed putting it out, and I love recommending it to people.
I agree. Another one that, just on that same vein, I had never seen before, but oddly enough, I think there's a couple key scenes where the art has been taken and just plastered everywhere for decades. I was so stoked when Satanico Pandemonium got announced.
Oh, sure.
I loved this movie. I've been sharing that one a lot, and then I love the people. I know I've had at least a couple that I've been able to share. Oh, you've liked some of the recent nunsploitation, like Severn put out their box set. Yeah. You should really go back and check out Satanico Pandemonium for Mondo, because it's a great entry.
Yeah, that's another Mexican movie like Alucarda, which is also a nunsploitation movie. Yeah, I don't know. That was sort of a specialty for us early on, Mexican nunsploitation movies. It's a weird thing to specialize in, but yeah, no, it's a really great and really unique little movie.
It is.
It has this like fever dream like feel to it. Like
Yeah.
it's not like super. It's not like action packed. There's not like tons of like crazy things happening every moment. It's more or less like this building like unease and like
Yep.
like it just gets you. You're not quite sure where it's going to go. Yeah, no, yeah, you're right. It's a great movie. That was a huge pain in the ass to put out on Blu-ray. I'll admit. I won't go into all the reasons why, but that was a real labor of love. I can tell you. So I'm glad that there are fans and people who are discovering it. So yeah, thank you,
we
everyone who bought
love.
it. Thank you, because it was a pain in the ass to do. I can tell you that.
Speaking of that, one of the questions I asked, I have had tons of people asking the different labels, what is their journey to putting out a release? Can you share not anything specific about any specific release, just the actual process is for Jared, for Mondo, for Pete, and how you go about this?
Well, I mean, it's different for. I mean, just about every movie is there's a different process. So, I mean, I can sort of. I mean, like Pete does most of the signing of the movies, like just because he's been in the business forever.
Right.
I'm still relatively new to doing it, but I have done some of it. So, I mean, often in my case, situations that I've signed movies, it's been I just find out who the owner is. And often case, like for example, Woman Chasing the Butterfly of Death is this is a good example. I'll use this one as an example. I had a friend in Korea. I have a couple of friends in Korea. They had helped me out already with Suddenly in the Dark, the South Korean movie we did before then, which is another really great and unusual movie. They put me in touch with another guy in South Korea who worked for the producer of that movie. Like he's like this young guy, actually still in the middle of doing his military service, mandatory military service. They all have to do that in South Korea. So he's a young guy in his 20s, but he's like, his mentor is the producer. He was also a director. Gosh, I'm blanking on his name. Jung, Jung, is his name. He made movies like Does the Cuckoo Cry at Night and some other stuff. But he produced a couple of Kim Ki-young's movies, including this. So they put me in touch with him. I started talking to him. He started talking to the producer, who's this very curmudgeonly old man. It's not like a big company. So there are different situations. Sometimes you're dealing with like almost a big corporation, or a sales agent or stuff like this. This was a case where it was just this old man who owns these movies still. He, still has a production company that owns these films and stuff. So it just was a case of kind of dealing with him. The guy I was speaking, obviously he speaks English, the producer does not. So I was just sort of using him as an intermediary, and that's something I've had to do a few times, especially with the Asian movies. It's just oftentimes the people there won't be someone who speaks English, especially if it's just a case where it's just a small company or one producer, no English. So you have to sort of deal with an intermediary. But then again, if you're working with a company like Toei in Japan, who we've just signed some movies with.
Oh, wow.
That they had, they're a huge company, and they, have sales agents who speak English. So it becomes a very easy process. But with this Korean movie was very much just back and forth and lots of sort of misunderstandings and things just not being communicated as well, just because there is that language difference. And that took, it probably took about 2 months. Koreans actually work really fast once everything comes together. But like I said, there was some things going back and forth. And so we just negotiated a deal where they would get the movie scanned and everything. and send it to us, and then we would sort of finish it up and do the restoration work, and then give it back to them, the final restored version. But like once we got it, so this is one of the other pitfalls is you get stuff, and then it's like, wow, this doesn't look great. This the materials weren't kept very well. It's going to take a lot of restoration. So I mean, so there's like back and forth with that. We have to get it color graded. That wasn't so great on the copy that we got. So I mean, it's this sort of long process. So you go to there, and then we got it to the point where it's okay, and it looks as good as it's going to look.
Right.
And so and then it's off to, God, is this getting boring? I don't
know. No, not at all. No.
Because at that point, we have some interviews, we put some together. Like I said, I have a couple of guys. I've got a friend over there, Matthew St. Pierre. He's a French Canadian guy, and he's an artist and a videographer. And he went over there and did interviews with the producer, with one of the actresses that was in the film, I think one of the cinematographers too, and with Darcy Packett, who is like an American who lives in Korea, who is
nice.
Kind of one of the general. Do you know who he is? He's one of the kind of gurus of Korean cinema for the English-speaking world. In fact, he did the subtitles for Parasite. So he works with lots of directors and stuff, and has even acted in a few K-dramas. I think they've even put him in when they need a white guy.
I recognize the name from everywhere.
Yeah, he did KoreanCinema.org, I think is his is his site. Anyway, he's been around forever. We got an interview with him. So we have all the elements, and then it's off to, and then it's off to authoring, it's off to compression. Get the movie looking as good as it can, compression, making sure there's not, artifacts. And so that took some work. That took I don't do a lot of the QC, but that is one where I did QC on quality control. We sort of tag teamed that, Pete and I. So that took a bit of going back and forth. And then it's, and it's publication time. And then it's, there's the art too. Like you very kindly talked up the art. That was something I commissioned from and worked with the artist on, and again, was really happy with. And I don't know if you have the red case, but that has that has some other art on the other side that was created for it that is really good. And that was also done by my friend Matthew St. Pierre.
Wow.
So he provided that for us. So he's really Johnny on the spot over there for a lot of these Korean projects. And we probably will do more Korean films at some point.
Awesome.
So and then it's all together, and then we put it out, and then people buy it.
That's the easy part.
Yeah, that's the final last hurdle is
right.
Actually sending the things out. So yeah, I don't know. That seemed long-winded, and I'm not sure how
not at all
informative it was, but that's sort of my experience, just because that is one that I worked so closely on.
And that's a lot of these people that have never been familiar with the process. They just think it's as simple as, whatever a scan for a movie is, and then they put it on a disc and send it out. So why can't they just do this in a couple weeks?
Yeah, no, it's not that simple at all.
Right.
Yeah, I mean, for one thing, people, it's something we struggle with because some of the movies are old. Right. So getting people to participate is often treacherous. There was an actor, one of the main actors in Butterfly of Death, I really wanted to interview, and he died. I don't think he was going to agree to it anyway. He was ill when when it happened, when we were talking about it. But he just died. No, I mean before we were even able to release the film, and that's just, unfortunately, that is something that you deal with a lot, and you're dealing with these movies now. Is these people are dying now, or have been dead for several years. So, and unfortunately, I say unfortunately, I understand it. There is this sort of like demand for interviews and extras and all this stuff. You'll get slammed by the reviews and by the comments online if you put out something bare bones, which is unfair because there's so much work that goes just into making the movie itself. And in the high definition era, there's so much more work goes into it than in the DVD era. I
Right.
mean, like in the DVD era, you could literally take a VHS transfer and put it on a DVD, and it would look a lot better than it did on
Call it
VHS.
good. Yeah.
It would look, it would look fine. It would maybe wouldn't look stunning, but it would look fine. But that, of course, is not possible. You
It's a
even get
different world.
it is a completely different world, and you even get like older HD scans
Right.
now, HD transfers that were done in like the mid 2000s. You put them on a disc now, and sometimes you can put some work into it and it'll look really good. We've done a few of those, and somehow people haven't even noticed. But then there's some people have noticed. The Paul Naschy movie Inquisition was one.
Yeah.
That was like, we had no choice at that time with that licenser that we were working with. They were just like, this is what we have. Take it or leave it. Eventually, we were able to get fresh scans out of them. But at that time, that was like the first movie that we did with them. And they were like, this is how it looks. And so we just put it out. And and I admit, it doesn't look fantastic. It doesn't.
Right. But it's also Naschy. So that's a big deal.
Well, yeah, and it's a really, really cool movie,
Right.
and we knew, and that is actually, but the thing is even though it did get slammed in some reviews, it's still sold pretty well.
Right.
I mean, most people don't care. It looks good enough.
It's true.
And I
Very
think a lot of but that's just all to say that there is a ton of work that even if it's just the movie on a disc, I mean, give those people who are doing that a break, because that is a lot of work for the scan, the restoration, the color correction, the compression, the authoring, the replication, assembly. I mean, there's a ton of work that goes into it.
Which literally takes years. No exaggeration at all.
It absolutely can. Yeah. I mean, like I said, we sort of sign licenses that are maybe shorter than some labels do, because there are some labels out there, I won't name names, but you know who I'm talking about, who have movies and like talk about them, but won't release them for years.
Right.
I don't know how they do that, because we need to put out stuff within the time frame and at least make sure it has plenty of time to sit on the market for a few years.
Of course.
To
get some reviews, get some buzz.
Yeah. Exactly. And you don't want to put out something and then have it go out of print. Like
it's 8 months later,
yeah, right. And that has happened with, sometimes because these things do take that long. Sometimes
right.
They can take up to years to find good materials. That's often the biggest hurdle, is just finding good film materials.
Right.
If not the negative, then some other, a good print or a good interpositive or whatever. And sometimes that takes searching, and sometimes you get it restored or you get it scanned and then something goes wrong with that and you have to get it scanned again. It's a very complicated process, and I wish more people did sort of know about that.
I agree.
Or sort of realize that. I think there is some awareness, just because in this era, I think a lot of the companies, myself included, have been more upfront about this sort of stuff, but I don't think enough people really have realized.
Well, and also everybody's at home, so it's taking even longer right now. So
yeah, I mean, yeah. So yeah, and that's a big thing too, especially in countries like, we've done a lot of Spanish films, and Spain had very stringent lockdown procedure for a long time, and that really cut into the work, the workflow of the whole process, and some things had to be put back. And that also interferes with getting people interviewed. Is that, especially, old people, because a lot of these actors and directors, they're old now, and you don't want to put them any risk, so that has definitely played a big part in the difficulty.
I understand that. I really wish more people did, because again, to circle back from 50 minutes ago, the hostility from some of these people is just insanity. I feel,
I'll be honest though, I'll just say this: we don't get it as much as some of the bigger boys do, and I really appreciate that. I mean, I do get some really, really impatient emails, but that's 4 or 5 people out of 1,000.
Right.
That's not bad. And you know, I think honestly, our fans are some of the best out there. You know, you go online and you see the way some of the people talk about some of the bigger labels, and it's just, you know, oh, nothing for me this month is the,
Right.
you know, the joke, or, you know,
Yep.
complaining about every single, you know, oh, the color's off, the compression is bad. You know, you'll see that about, oh, it took me a month to get my order. You know, you see that a lot more with some of the other labels, and I'm appreciative of that. That, you know, we have this like core base of fans who are hip and in the know. You know what I mean? They give us some leeway, and they're really into what we do, and I love it. It's great. It's really satisfying.
I get a lot of attention lately when I bring up Mondo on a lot of my streams and my shows and my videos, and a lot of people are asking what is the best way to break into this. So my question when I speak to a lot of these labels, what is, in your opinion, the best way for somebody to support you in the best possible way that benefits both you and the customer the best?
Well, it's certainly buying direct. I mean, if you're just talking about supporting through your, you know, voting with your dollars,
Right.
You know, buy from us. Don't buy from Amazon.
Please.
Because I mean, that's how we make money. Honestly, if we were just selling through e-tailers, we wouldn't be in business.
Right.
It's just as simple as that. I mean, it was really like, going back again, like to what I was talking about before, when there was just 1 or 2 DVD releases a year. That was, of course, all it was, you know, there's, you know, there's Diabolic and a few other sort of indie retailers who are selling this stuff, and
Right.
people should buy from them too. But it was me opening the store that really led to the growth of the company. You know, it's because we make so much more money,
Right.
and are able to then turn that money around and do more movies. So, I mean, if that's what you want, if you want more from Mondo Macabro, please, you know, buy. The best thing you can do is to buy the red case limited releases, like, you know, because that's where we're going to make most of the money. You know, most sales for any release that happens is going to be in the first week, first weeks of its release. So the earliest release version for us is going to be these red case releases, and you can only buy them direct from me. So if you do that, you are definitely supporting this company directly.
And they are all incredible. I mean, all high quality. They all have some sort of extra supplements on the inside. This one has, I believe, a book and art card. Yeah.
Yeah, that one. Yeah, and a reversible cover sleeve too. Yeah,
I don't think I can show the other side.
Old ad art. Yeah, no, right? Yeah, yeah. You don't want it to be. Yeah, you can blur it out maybe.
Yeah.
Yeah, but you know, but I also realize that isn't always possible, and
Right.
we do need Amazon sales and you know, and Diabolic sales, Diabolic DVD. Jesse is a good friend of mine, and
Jesse's great.
Yeah. I mean, the hardest working man in show business.
I would agree.
So please support him. And he's also, here's a bit of news for you. If you'd like a little break,
please.
Break some news. He and I are working on something together.
Oh, interesting.
Label. So yeah. So
how does he find the time?
I don't know. But it was something. It was a movie that I signed a movie, or I made a deal for a movie, and just for whatever reason, Pete said, I just don't think this is viable for us.
That makes sense.
So I did a little shopping around, and I was originally going to take it to OCN, Vinegar Syndrome's thing.
Right.
But then I had a conversation with Jesse, and you know, he's doing Cauldron now with his partner Brian Izzy, who is the second hardest working man in show business. He's a genius. He builds all their discs, does all their restoration, does all that in house. So I brought it to them and I said, well, I've got this movie. It's really interesting. Pete doesn't think we can do it. What do you think? And so that has led to what will be a new side label. It'll come out through the Cauldron. I hope they don't mind that I didn't tell them that I was going to be breaking this news on your show, but that it'll be coming out through Cauldron. The first release should be coming out sometime in the next few months, hopefully.
Wow.
cross your fingers.
Fantastic.
And there are more movies. I just signed another movie.
Oh, good.
And then have another one that I'm going to sign as soon as I refill the coffers a little bit.
Right.
So it'll be Asian focused.
Oh, cool.
So again, going back to the sort of moment that Asian movies are having.
Yeah.
So we're adding to that and not adding to the richness, not adding to the glut.
Right.
so have a look for that. That's all I'll say. I don't, because there'll be a press release announcement and stuff in a couple of months.
Good.
So, but just to tease a little bit, yeah, there'll be a new label that I and they are working on together, all about Asian films, particularly like trashy action exploitation.
Nice.
Yeah.
That sounds right up my alley.
Yeah.
That's amazing. The other thing I was going to say before I let you go, again, thank you so much for your time today. Supporting you directly, obviously, red case is the best way. But in terms of somebody is perhaps a little hesitant to try out a new label, you do have sales on your website, and that's still a good time to support, obviously, direct.
Oh yeah, of course. Yeah, we do a sale every October. We do a Halloween sale. And we do that to get out ahead of everyone else's Black Friday sales.
And it works pretty well as far as I can tell.
Yeah. They've gotten, it's been more successful every year. And we have new, we'll put up new pre-orders. And in fact, the plan is right now is the Caligari UHD will be for sale during the Halloween sale this year.
Nice.
So that's a little bit of news for you too.
Cool.
But absolutely. I mean, stuff is, it's at least a lot of stuff, not everything, because some of if it's more recent, I'll knock a couple of bucks off, but it won't be half off. But you'll get a lot of things that are like half off the MSRP. So that is a good chance to take a chance.
Exactly.
And on a movie, like, oh, I've heard about this, but I'm not sure. I don't want to spend $30. Well, you can spend $17 with,
and get, as far as I remember, it pretty much in almost every single case it's the exact same release, just without the bonus physical supplements, right?
Yeah, the retail releases, and we, for the most part, we always do retail releases of the red case limited editions, and they will be, it's the exact same disc.
Right.
It's not financially feasible to redo a disc.
Exactly.
To only publish 1,000 and then redo a disc, because there's all kinds of authoring and replication costs. So it's the exact same disc. It's just in the the thin blue Amaray cases or whatever they're called. But sometimes they'll have different art. Sometimes it'll have the same art, but sometimes it'll be different art. So that's sort of cool too. So collect them all, kids. Get both versions.
Collect them all. Please support Mondo Macabro. Jared, again, thank you so much for all your time today. I appreciate you being here. I hope it was enjoyable for you.
No, it's been great. Thanks for having me. It's a lot of fun to talk.
All right.